Okay, so we're holding in Parshas Miketz, Perek Mem Aleph, Pasuk Lamed Hey. The last pasuk, Yosef said that there's going to be a 20% Chumash tax on Mitzrayim during the Sheva Shnei Hasofa. Pasuk Lamed Hey. V'yikbetzu es kol oichel. They'll gather all of the food, Hashanim hatoives habois ha'ela, of these good years that are coming. V'yitzbu uvar tachas yad parei oichel be'orim v'shamar. So I want to focus on really the first half of the pasuk. The obvious question that many of us should deal with is the kol oichel. They'll gather all the food. What's that about?
Only taking 20%.
Taking 20%. What's the kol oichel? So some say it means all different types of food. Okay? Some say it's some of the food, right? But the food could be called kol. Maybe 20% could be called kol, I don't know. However, it's obviously problematic. I mean, what's the pasuk doing saying kol oichel? They're just taking a percentage. And the truth is, there's another problem in the ratio, the first half of the pasuk, which is, what's the pasuk saying? Hashanim hatoives habois ha'ela, of the good years that are coming. Meaning, the last pasuk said, it called it already, the Sheva Shnei Hasofa. It's going to be a Chumash taken at the Sheva Shnei Hasofa. So if there's some additional description of what they're doing, fine, but it says these good years that are coming. So what's the point? Right? What's the pasuk coming to say? They will collect. It's clearly not just giving us more technical detail. It's saying some sort of giving it a certain twist, flavor by expressing the good years that are coming, right? And then there's this contradiction, and it doesn't make sense that they're going to collect kol oichel. So I want to suggest the following. If you look at the end of Parshas Vayigash. Parshas Vayigash is where the end of Parshas Vayigash is where the Torah describes Yosef's plan really succeeding in cementing Paro's absolute control, right? And let's start in pasuk Yud Daled. Paragraph 9, pasuk Yud Daled. Yosef collects kol hakesef. No more kesef left. Pasuk Tesov, kol Mitzrayim comes to him, and in pasuk Yud Zayin he takes kol Miknehem. And then in pasuk Chaf he takes kol Admas Mitzrayim. So the whole Mitzrayim brings all the kesef, all the mikneh, and all the adama. And then the pasuk says, okay, now he owns everything, right? Now Paro is absolute master through Yosef. And Yosef does them the favor of giving them zera and demanding them a chamishas, the Paro, which became a choik al hayom hazeh, right? We spoke about this last time, that this temporary plan described in pasuk Lamed Daled, this 7-year plan of Chumash Sheva Shnei Hasofa turned into a permanent law, right? Through the fact that Paro got technically or legally full control, right? So I want to say that that's what the kol is doing in pasuk Lamed Hey. The Hainu, Yosef is telling Paro, you want to know what pshat and kol is? I don't know, kol minim or chamish. That's one level. But the reason why the pasuk say the word kol is because Yosef is intimating to Paro that the real prize over here, or I'm really gunning for, I'm really aiming for, says Yosef to Paro, is to cement your power over the whole economic system of Mitzrayim. And even though I told you in the last pasuk that we're going to have 7 years, you're going to get a Chumash. Say that. What's that going to do for you? Stams, it will help you for the 7 years thereof. No. This is an opportunity. The Sheva Shonim, the Shonim HaToivos HaBois, and that's what the pasuk stresses. Look, the fact that this Shonim Toivos Bois, Paro, this is your Shah. This is your moment where you can really take power, ultimate and complete power, control. And that's what I want to get for you. And because if I get that for you, that's going to end up working in your favor, because even the temporary measures can turn into permanent measures, as was happened. So it's a sequence over here. First Chumash, Sheva Shonim, but really we're going to aim for kol, and if we achieve that, then the chamishas is going to end up being choik al hayom hazeh.
Because he gets all the land.
Right. I mean, and the point is, I think the point is like this: what does it help Paro to have everything? So what's he gonna do with it? Oh, then he could demand a Chumash. So the right, the same way equal to his koleichel, you're not gonna let them eat. And Teretz says technically, no, it wasn't helping technically, because then you could demand something that really should be an emergency measure. But since I don't know, but it's really mine, so it gives you a right to squeeze them a little more, right? Obviously, you have to partner with your peasants and give them food. It's just that if they recognize that you have everything, you have all the power, then you could push them a little harder, squeeze them a little harder.
Which is to say, he originally told them, "This is what you should do as a proper a good leader."
Correct.
And I'm going to turn your good leadership into tyranny by saying, instead of saying, "Well, I took this special extra tenth,
right,
so I could feed you."
Right.
But then it's yours.
Right.
No, it's mine.
Right. Exactly. So basically, and we spoke about this last time, that Yosef is supporting Paro's tyrannic streak, or his midas, the midas of Paro, and that Yosef is abusing, as Amos says. Amos rails against the people that sell the Evian for shoes, and the guy who says, let's stockpile the grain until there's a hunger and they can kill him. Which is so what the Shvatim did to Yosef, and Yosef then passed on the abuse to Mitzrayim. There's enough, and Amos, and they're talking about the lacking the Dvar Hashem. The Shvatim did Dvar Hashem, and it turns out Yosef also, we're speaking about this, right? Keep on talking about this. But anyways, so that's what we spoke about last time. But so that's what the sequence of this psukim is like. We're talking about a Chumash, also, and then the next thing you know, he's talking about Kol. Because that's the end game, and that's why, in other words, that's the agenda. He's telling Paro, this is not just, I'm not just someone who's going to secure the safety of the country. I'm the person you need to ruthlessly utilize this crisis, exploit this crisis for maximum power, maximum economic power, up to and including Kol, if we can. Okay, so that's the point, and that's why it stresses. Look, the Shonim Tovis Habayis. He's coming for a reason. Hashem didn't stam give you Shonim Tovis Stamazay. Says you could take opportunity. This is your opportunity to become the absolute master of Mitzrayim, and consolidate your control. And that's why he stresses in this pasuk that it's going to be Tachas Yad Parei, because this is not just a economic pasuk. This is a control pasuk, I would suggest. And of course, later you have in the pasuk that Yosef shares in this power, because it talks about Paro removing the tabas from his yad and putting it on Yad Yosef, and telling him no one but you can pick up his hand. So Yosef is offering to Paro power to give the two a tachas Yad Paro, and Yosef ends up being the one who actually, in a certain sense, is the one who has that power. And that's why we have this whole, this whole funny shutvis. Is it Paro? Is it Yosef? And Yosef gets all the money, and Paro doesn't go to Yosef. So Yosef is somehow sharing in what he offered to Paro.
He also gives Paro 12 levels of ability. I didn't do this, but Yosef is the sorcerer. You gotta go.
Yeah, okay, that could be right. So maybe there had to be a team here, so no one really gets blamed. Okay. So that's the point, I think, of the kol. And this kol is indicating what we're really looking for. We're looking for absolute power. Okay. Now look at the pasuk, where the pasuk describes that this was in fact executed, the plan was executed. That's in pasuk Memches. But it says kol eichel, right? This says they did it. And then the next pasuk, Vayitzbar bar. I mean, pasuk Memches and Memtes are correspond to pasuk Memhei. And pasuk Memtes says Vayitzbar Yosef bar kachol hayom. Okay, so ultimately, how much bar did he have? He says we have to collect bar. How much bar did he have? Infinite or innumerable amount of bar, right? So I think this corresponds to the kol in pasuk Lamed Hey, because it's originally talks about we need a certain quantity, a percentage, and then it becomes 100%. Basically, the point is that what he wants is not the necessary amount to prevent starvation. That's the cover, and that's the theoretical, or ostensibly that's the purpose. But ultimately, what he wants is limitless power, and that's expressed then in the fact that there's an innumerable amount of bar. Now, look at the next pasuk. We're going to go to pasuk Nun. I want to speak about pasuk Memtes and Nun, and this will teach us something about this promise to Paro of giving him the kol. In pasuk Memtes, it talks about the food being innumerable like the sand. And of course those psukim that talk about that pasuk that talks about the fact that the grain had no number. Of course, that reminds us of the bracha Tavram. That is that, right? That's supposed to be uncountable. So we have this like biblical description of the where it doesn't belong. Oh, they had so much food; it was innumerable. There was no number for it. Okay, yeah, that's Klal Yisrael, right? And then the next pasuk Nun Taka talks about the Leda of Bnei Yisrael, and it says Yosef Yulad Shnei Vonim, B'Tem Tovish Nasarav, which is Shnei Midrabim Shnaim, right? So this is like this. The first pasuk talks about a number being uncountable, which is be'etzem what Klal Yisrael is supposed to be. But here, it's the grain of Mitzrayim. And Klal Yisrael, Yosef was in Mitzrayim. He has two. he had Taka children, but he had the smallest number of the Rebbe, right? Okay. So now we have to read this as like this. There's this biblical kind of Rebbe going on, Ein Mispar, but it's in the wrong place. It's Mitzrayim's grain, and not Bnei Yisrael where it's supposed to be. Okay? Now, he wants to take that even further, and then we're going to go back. This is all going to get us back to a couple of diukim pasuk around here. Pasuk Nun says, "B'tem tovish nasa rav," right? Before the rav came, he had shnei banim. So the pshat is like this: Yosef, where does Yosef get the bracha of rebui? The Klal Yisrael has a bracha of rebui. Bnei Yisrael parva yishud zovayib v'yatzim moed moed. Bnei Yisrael has this blessing of being innumerable and increasing. When does Yosef achieve that? Yeah? When does Yosef achieve that? So the pasuk says Yid Gula Raif Bekerev Haaretz. Bekerev Haaretz means in Eretz Yisrael, and the Vilna Gaon says that's why in Sefer Yeshua, Shevet Yosef comes to Yeshua and says we don't have enough land. Because while everyone else reached their numbers in Mitzrayim, Yosef's bracha of Rebui is only in Eretz Yisrael. Okay? So now that's you can see that in this pasuk. Why? Because pasuk is going like this. What's the difference between Mitzrayim and Eretz Yisrael? What's the difference between Mitzrayim and Eretz Yisrael? The difference is that, as the pasuk says, that Eretz Yisrael could have a rav, and Mitzrayim does not have a rav. Right? So b'terem tava ishnas a rav, when Mitzrayim is decidedly un-Eretz Yisrael dik, so Yosef can't have the rebui. So as b'terem tava ishnas a rav is saying, wait a second, Mitzrayim, which remember we've been talking about this. Mitzrayim right now is facing a rav, which they're never supposed to face. And Mitzrayim has the possibility, there's opportunity now for Mitzrayim to become Keretz Yisrael, right? Yosef forestalled that, not forestalled. Yosef made that not happen. Yeah, by telling them everything's gonna be fine. You have nothing to worry about, right? First the good news, then the bad news, right? First the good news. It's gonna be on a Shalom Pari. If you would have told them first the bad news, you have a rav coming, you guys are in big trouble. Everyone's at the mercy of Hashem. You're like everyone else. Hashem could save you because the same way he could give you up, he could save you, and he happens to be saving you in advance. That's not what happened. He told them everything's going to be fine. First thing you should know is everything's going to be fine. So Mitzrayim never became Keretz Yisrael, right? Because the Rav was meaningless to them. The Rav was meaningless to them due to Yosef's intervention, right? So Memela Mitzrayim is not Eretz Yisrael because it's a Shneas Asava, and Memela Yosef cannot participate in the Rebui. In other words, the rebui that's happening is in the wrong place. Bnei Yisrael cannot participate in this rebui because the land is still Mitzrayim, still not Eretz Yisrael. Okay? Fine? Good. Now, let's see. There is a pasuk in Asher which talks about Bnei Yisrael being like the sand. Right? Now, the pasuk says that the Tavua was Kechol Hayom. It says in Asher, Perek Beis, pasuk Aleph, Hayu Bispar Bnei Yisrael Kechol Hayom. Asher lo yimad lo yisafer. One day, Bnei Yisrael is going to be kachol. And what's going to happen then? Pasuk Beis in the Asher Perek Beis, Pasuk Beis. V'nikbutzu Bnei Yisrael, Bnei Yehuda, Bnei Yisrael yachtav. V'samu lahem roish echad v'olu min haaretz. So when Bnei Yisrael is numerous like the chol and not countable, then they're going to be Allah min haaretz. They're going to leave the haaretz. And if you look in the Asher Perek Beis, Pasuk Yzayin, it talks about the day of Aloisa Me'eretz Mitzrayim. Okay? So that means really who's supposed to be numerous like the Chol B'nei Yisrael? Asher Perek Beis, Pasuk Aleph and Pasuk Beis. Perek Beis, Aleph and Beis. So who's supposed to be numerous like the Chol B'nei Yisrael? When they are, says Isaiah, they're going to be B'nei Kilchoy, and they're going to be Olam and Haaretz. Olam and Haaretz, right? And Olam and Haaretz, looking at Shepeg Beis Pasuk Zayin, it talks about the day of Allah Yisrael Meretz Mitzrayim. So, remember in the beginning of Shemais, when Bnei Yisrael's Parva Yisrael Vayibru Matzim Moed, Parva is afraid that they're going to be Olam and Haaretz. Right? They're going to be Olam and Haaretz. So, and that's what it says in Hashea, when they're going to be K'chol Hayom, they're going to be Olam and Haaretz. Okay? So what it's saying is like this. If Bnei Yisrael is Rav, like the Chol, that means that they don't belong. In other words, the Revi'ah of Bnei Yisrael is Shayach to Eretz Yisrael. If they're going to be Rava, then they have to leave Mitzrayim. Yosef, who's not being Rava, it's saying like this. It's saying the Rebui that's happening over here, the Rebui that's happening is a Rebui in the wrong place. The Rebui in the right place is Eretz Yisrael. And when Bnei Yisrael is going to be Rava, it says in Shemais, they're going to be Alonas. They're going to go to Eretz Yisrael. Okay?
Yeah.
Fine. So Yosef over here doesn't experience the Rebui. Say that. I just want to mention one point. In fact, what?
Because he kept the Shnei Sava.
Right. Because he was busy with the Shnei Sava. So therefore, he didn't allow Mitzrayim to be like Eretz, and therefore he can't be Rav. Now, just a parenthetical thing: why is it that Yosef is not Rava, part of Rava in Mitzrayim? He's only part of Rava in Eretz Yisrael, while Bnei Yisrael, the other ones, are part of Rava in Mitzrayim. I think the reason is very simple. As we're reading the pasuk, Yosef's ikar identifying himself with Mitzrayim is b'term tavish nasa Rav, right? Because Yosef is the one who says, "I can make everything be perfectly fine for Mitzrayim." So since that's his association with Mitzrayim, so he can't be part of Rav there. Klal Yisrael's association with Mitzrayim is going there when they have a problem, when they have a Rav, and they were never there. They were never there as the ones who are going to support Mitzrayim. So they're always have one leg out, right? They're always not really there, or it's not the place for them of Shalom. If you're giving them Shalom, you have a big problem. Because Yosef is the one who has a problem, right? Yosef is the one who's Maftiach Shalom Parei.
So part of it is because they weren't doing well.
Exactly. As the pasuk says, Kashiyanu Keniyah. Yosef, whose major introduction to Mitzrayim, of course, he was sold as a slave first, but here's where he's the one who's saying, "Look, I'm with you, and we'll talk about this soon." He gives Shalom Parei, of course. We'll talk about this soon in Yishmizma Kofem Zayin, where it talks about the Shalom is really of Yerushalayim, right? They're supposed to get the Shalom, and so on and so forth. And there it talks about the Rebui of Bnei Yisrael, right? And the kibbutz, the true kibbutz, is as it says in Hosea, when the Bnei Yisrael are numerous, like the Gerchavim, they're not countable. They're lifnei Hashem, and then Hashem brings them together and brings them to Yerushalayim. So that's when you're giving the Shalom Yerushalayim. Yosef was giving Shalom Parei. Can't experience this Rebui. Okay, so now I want to take this a little further. So what we're saying is like this. You see in this parsha, there's two possible Rebuis. There's a Rebui that it happens to the Tvuah, which is Kachol. And really, as it says in Hosea, Bnei Yisrael are supposed to be like the Chol. Here, the Rebui of the grain of Mitzrayim is Kachol, and not Bnei Yisrael. Bnei Yisrael not Rav Kachol, Bnei Yosef not Rav Kachol, right? Okay, so that means we're saying that the Rebui, the same Rebui is the same possibility of Rebui is being dealt with regarding the Tvuah and regarding Bnei Yisrael. Why is that? Why is the same Rebui question being dealt with both? Now, so we spoke about this in Amos. We spoke about this a lot. And in Amos it says that the Rav is not a Rav Lalechem. It's really for Dvar Hashem, right? That means, okay, so it means, of course, on one level it means that Lalechem stands for Dvar Hashem, and the Rav is a mashal for Dvar Hashem, but it also means something else. It also means something very simple. We spoke about this in Mizrach Kofram Zayin, where it says, Lo b'gwas yosef plots, lo b'shek yeshu, it's rather Roitz Hashem Esireya, right? And then it starts talking about Yerushalayim having the Chel of Chitim, Yasbiach, right? And Yosef, we spoke about this, Yosef was Masbiach, Mitzvot Vash Asbiach, Yosef gave Masani Hashem, the Chel of Chitim really supposed to go to Yerushalayim. And there it says in Mizrach Kofram Zayin, what does Hashem want? Yireyav. What does that mean? It means like it says in Mizmor Lamed Gimel, it says the same thing. Right? What do you need to survive a Rav? Yiras Hashem. What's the theory of that? Why is it that you need Yiras Hashem to survive a Rav? If you look at Mizmor Lamed Gimel, it says Yasha Dvar Hashem, and B'Dvar Hashem Shemayim Nasu, and Yiru Me Hashem Kol Aretz. Why? Kihu Amar Vayehi. Meaning, since the Dvar Hashem is at the root of everything, since the Dvar Hashem is what created the world, therefore, the only thing that's important, the only thing that's relevant at any problematic time is the Dvar Hashem. So the reason why is based on the Dvar Hashem. That's what it says in Mizmor Lamed Gimel. Since the Dvar Hashem is what made the world, therefore, that's the only thing that's important. And therefore, if there's a hunger, literal hunger, so what do you need? You need more Dvar Hashem, because Dvar Hashem Shemayim Nasu. So what do you need? How are you supposed to respond to Dvar Hashem? Yiru Me Hashem Kol Aretz Min Kihu Amar Vayehi. Since the Dvar Hashem, which is Amar Vayehi, Dvar Hashem Shemayim Nasu, the proper response to that is Yira. So if there's a hunger, that means you need more Yira. It's Pashut. So it's the Rav L'Shmoya Dvar Hashem. It doesn't just mean it's symbolic. It means if there's a Rav, what you should do is respond to Dvar Hashem with Yira, because that's how you respond to Dvar Hashem. It says in Mizmor Lamed Gimel, and then, right, in Hashem right, you're good. Exactly. Okay.
Then you can tell the Rishonim you're going to die. But we won't.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. Yosef could have told Paro you're done, and forget about it. And he should have been Yoreh Hashem. Okay, but that's the whole shmuz. Instead, he identified with Paro, as we spoke about this. Fine. So now, what happens like this? Going back to Mizmor Kuf Mem Zayin, which we spoke about a lot. There it talks about Magid Dvar L'Yaakov, right? Only Yaakov gets the davar, not l'chol goy. Hasam gevulech shalom, chilav chitim yasbiach. The shalom is only for Yerushalayim, not for Paroi, right? And again, like I mentioned before, there it says in Mizmor Kuf Mem Zayin, Moina Mizbala Kechavim, and Hashem is Nidche Yisrael Lechanes. They are the Kechavim. They gathered up. They gathered together. Bnei Yisrael gathered together one by one, and brought to Yerushalayim. Right? They're the ones who are like Kechavim, and Hashem collects them, and he's mashbel Shama the Arts, and he brings the good guys back to Yerushalayim, and Hashem makes the rain. That's Kuf Mem Zayin. We spoke about this a lot. Okay, fine. Now, that's what it says in Mizmor Kuf Mem Zayin. Again, so what am I saying from there? You see like this. You see there's a Dvar Hashem, and really we have to think about Lo Rav Alechem Kim L'Shmo Dvar Hashem. Okay? So really what we need is to respond to Dvar Hashem. What's the response to Dvar Hashem is Yireyav Hu Miyachal Mechastoi, right? And now is what I want to get. Now I want to tie this together. As I mentioned before, we're trying to understand it here. Like there's two things happening here. There's this Rebui of the Tvua, and there's a possible Rebui of Bnei Yisrael, right? Which Bnei Yisrael Nimshal Tichoil and Tvua is also Nimshal. How do two go together? The reason why the two go together is because the real response to a Rav, what you're supposed to think about in the Rav is that hey, we need more Dvar Hashem, right? We need more Dvar Hashem means we need more Yireim. Mm-hmm. So it means we need Bnei Yisrael. Okay? So let's look at it like this. If a Rav, the message of a Rav is there's not enough interaction with Dvar Hashem, which means there's not enough Bnei Yisrael, right? Then a Sava would mean there's a lot of Dvar Hashem and a lot of interaction with a lot of Bnei Yisrael, right? A lot of Bnei Yisrael. Which now, what it means like this. Let me explain what it means. It's a very simple message. If Yosef would have told Paroi, you know what the Rav means? It means you guys are completely at the mercy of God, just like everyone else, right? Then Paroi would have become a Ben Yisrael. Mitzrayim would have become like Eretz Yisrael, right? And then after Yosef finished that whole shmooze, Yosef maybe could have turned around and told him, by the way, Hashem Barev Chastoi, since you fear him, Hashem put an idea in my head, which is that we should save the grain and so on and so forth, right? So in other words, the Sava could have been the Dvar Hashem, right? If you relate to the Rav properly, like they do in Eretz Yisrael, then the Sava is a Sava that represents a Rebui of Yireyav, a Rebui of Bnei Yisrael. So these are not just two different Mashalim. The Rebui, that's what I'm getting. The point I'm getting to is that the Rebui in Parshas Miketz, the Rebui of the grain, which is but Yosef only has two, is not a Rebui of Bnei Yisrael. Is really it's the exact same thing that Amos is saying. Is that you misunderstand Yosef misunderstood or misdirected the Rav from being about Lechem, and really it's supposed to be about a Rav L'Shmo Dvar Hashem, which is supposed to lead to an increase of Yireyav, right? Meaning a Sava of Dvar Hashem, which is an increase of Yireyav, which is a Rebui of Bnei Yisrael. Okay? You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So therefore it's saying, no, the Yosef Yulad Shnei Banim, look, we don't have the Rebui of Bnei Yisrael. Because he's giving Shalom to Paroi, and really Shalom again, like it says in Mizmor Kuf Mem Zayin, If you want to have monim b'spal ha'kochav nidchei yisol lechanes, you have to understand that Hashem makes it rain, and that Hashem doesn't, right? As it says in Yemei Motor, and He doesn't care about the Susim. It's all about our Pasha. He doesn't care about Mitzrayim and their horses. Really wants Yireov, and really all He cares about is Yushalayim, and they're going to get the Shalom, and they're going to get the Chiluk Chita. And then, of course, it talks about the Dvar Hashem, right? Asherechem Basa'aretz, Mehirotz Devari. You could access the Dvar Hashem, Yishach Dvar V'yamsim, and that relates to the rain. Because the rain people understand this idea of the Dvar Hashem, like it says in Yeshaya, right? Kikasha Yerda Geshem Hashalek, Keni Yedvar Shetzim Pi. And Magid Dvar Liyaakov, of course, there's a lot of Goy. Oh, Pare Kenish Vashnein Dvar Hashem. Yosef could understand it, and he's supposed to understand it. And when you understand that, then you realize that the Rav is really about that, because Roitz Hashem is Yireov. Nah, he doesn't care about the sus, doesn't care about the power, he cares about Yireov. So the Rav indicates to Hashem. And if you would have understood that, if Yosef would have understood that, then instead of having a rebui of grain, we would have had a rebui of Bnei Yisrael being Kechoil, right? Like Hosea says, and then V'olam and Arts, then we go to Eretz Yisrael. Or if Pari understands it too, then Mitzrayim becomes like Eretz Yisrael, which is the same thing. Okay? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I want to say like this. You could go a little deeper, a little more another knage. Mitzrayim right now had the possibility of becoming like Eretz Yisrael if they would only realize that the Rav is significant. What Yosef did was, he basically, instead of focusing on the Sheva Shnois Rav, he focused on the Shonim HaTovis. Right? He said, the Shonim HaTovis, HaBoaz HaEla, Pari, this is your moment. This is when you're supposed to shine. Right? And really, it's the Sheva Shonim of Rav, which is the real opportunity for Pari. Because that's when Pari could have learned to fear Hashem. Okay?
That's the good thing.
What?
That's the good thing.
Yeah. Depends what you call tight, right? Exactly. That's what's really tight.
Like we have with Chumash Mitzrayim.
Yeah, that what?
That the Sar HaEifim was the one who got the good thing, because he knows life is ephemeral.
Very good. Excellent. Okay. So that's the thing. So Yosef is. So that's another point that the pasuk is stressing. The Shonim HaTovis HaBoaz HaEla, because it's saying, Yosef's picking. Look, these Shonim HaTovis, these are very special. And by saying that, he's really trapping Pari in his Mitzri outlook. And since he's trapping Pari in his Mitzri outlook, all you have is the rebui of literal Tvuah, instead of having a rebui of Yirei Hashem, which is what we really should care about. If you want to have a rebui of Yirei Hashem, you have to focus on the Rav. And say, there's a Rav. That means Hashem is in control. And what should we do about this? Let's fear Hashem. Let's talk about Hashem. It's a very, very obvious response. But Yosef short circuits that by focusing on the Shonim HaTovis. Okay? So that's it. So the Yosef Yulash Shnei Bonim, because it's not Eretz Yisrael. Now I want to show you two other psukim. Agav, I just want to say one thing. I have a suspicion, but I have to work this out more. What's the difference between Eretz Yisrael and Mitzrayim? So of course, Eretz Yisrael has a Rav and Mitzrayim doesn't. That says in the Devarim, right? But it also says about Eretz Yisrael. What does it say about Eretz Yisrael in the Parsha of Meraglim? Where they're going to check out if it's a good place. Chevron Sheva Shonim Nivnas Al Lefnei Tzayim Mitzrayim, which is a very mysterious pasuk, right? Chevron was built 7 years before Tzayim. Kids, I want to just what? Right. So I just want to suggest that it has to do with this shmuz, because the whole question of whether Mitzrayim is going to become like Eretz Yisrael all hinges on 7 years, right? Because it's a question of which Mitzrayim had its chance. It had its chance to be like Eretz Yisrael because it had its Sheva Shnei Rav. But the fact is that instead of thinking about the Sheva Shnei Rav, they busy with the Sheva Shnei Sava. Shonim HaTovis was their heyday, and therefore they're not like Eretz Yisrael. I still don't know how, the fact Sheva Shnei Nivus Al Lefnei, I don't know what that means.
So they're always B'shnei Rav?
What?
Eretz Yisrael is always B'shnei Rav?
Always potentially B'shnei Rav, right.
Looking upward?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Eretz Yisrael is always in a massive of Rav that happens to get rain. Yeah. So what Sheva Shonim Nivus Al Lefnei Mitzrayim is saying something like Chevron has that Sheva Shonim that Mitzrayim doesn't have, or something. Say it like that again, right? Yeah. Those Sheva Shonim that Mitzrayim didn't capitalize on, which is a Sheva Shnei Rav, Chevron has that, something like that. Yeah. Okay, there's also Emek in that, a big Emek in that also, which relates to the socials.
Emek Chevron.
Okay, I want to show you a pasuk in Yeshaya that ties into this whole thing in an amazing way. One pasuk in Yeshaya, one pasuk in Amos. Yeshaya Perek. Let's see. Yeshaya Perek Chof Zayin. Yeshaya Perek Chof Zayin. let's start in pasuk Hey, just quickly to review, even though it started earlier. Yeshaya Perek Chav Zayin, pasuk Hey, talks about the true strength, which is the shalom of Hashem. That's the true strength. And later in Yeshaya it says, not the mo'is of Mitzrayim, but rather the mo'is of Hashem. And then it talks about those who are coming down to Mitzrayim, Abraham, Yashrish, Yaakov, going to take root, right? That's coming down to Mitzrayim. And what are they supposed to do? Pasuk Yud Aleph, Bivosh Kitzira Tishavarna. When the kotzer dries up, let it break. As we spoke about this, that Yosef was supposed to say, haha, your kotzer is dry, but say the Gemur, the Rav will come and I'm not helping you out, right? Okay, but no, instead, it's a le'am binoisu, and instead he comes to Paro's rescue. Big mistake. Pasuk Yud Beis. Hashem is going to beat out the grain from Shibolis until Nachal Mitzrayim. Attempt to look to la'achad echad b'nei Yisrael. You are going to be collected one at a time. Right? So here in Pasuk Yud Beis, Klal Yisrael is nimshal to the grain, right? But they're the grain that Hashem wants, and He's going to collect them. So the Pasuk Yud Aleph says, let the kotzer dry up and break, the goyish kotzer, and Hashem is going to take His grain one at a time. Okay? So I want to say that, so this is Mamashar Parsha. Yosef was supposed to let their grain dry up. Let Mitzrayim go, who cares about Mitzrayim? What do we care about? We care about a different kind of grain. We care about the grain that's really Yereov, right? The mashal, what the grain's all about, how you relate to Hashem. Do you meet the Dvar Hashem or do you not meet the Dvar Hashem? Do you realize that you have to meet the Dvar Hashem because you might starve to death? So recognize you have to meet the Dvar Hashem. So then the grain is you, or the grain is a mashal for you. And then the pasuk is saying, V'atem tulku la'achad echad. Because Yosef Yudah Shnei Banim, why? Because he doesn't belong there. He doesn't belong in Mitzrayim. That's why he can't experience any bracha in Mitzrayim.
There's two?
Yeah, two. Meaning he doesn't have a rebui. His rebui his banim is capped. So v'atem tulku la'achad echad b'nei Yisrael is one at a time. It's like Yosef Yudah Shnei Banim, and bo ha'ivdim be'etz asher l'dachem be'etz tzayim. The fact that you're achad echad, and you don't have the tfu merubah, indicates that you're supposed to be collected from Mitzrayim. Okay? So again, if Mitzrayim would be like Eretz Yisrael, so Beseder, so you can have Rebbe in Mitzrayim. But in as much as we say Bivosh Kitzir Tishavarna, they have problems. They're not doing Eretz Yisrael thing. Therefore, let them end. So then, well, what is the grain that we do care about? What's important about this dream? What's important about the dream is not to save Mitzrayim; it's to save the Achad Echad, who don't belong to Mitzrayim. They're the grain that we really care about, and the Achad Echad. Right? See? Yeah. Okay, and I want to show you one more pasuk that suggests that it also is connected. And this is the last thing. This is in Amos, Perek Ches. Amos Perek Ches is the Klov Kayetz, right? Which means Ba'aketz, and that's Miketz Shatzayim Yamim and so on. And then Pasuk Dalet talks about those who abuse the Aniyim. Pasuk Hey is those who seek to stockpile the grain and then wait till there's a hunger and make a lot of money, right? Mm-hmm. And Hashem says He won't forget. We spoke about that Pasuk, Ve'ishkachehu. And Pasuk Ches talks about the river Nile coming up and destroying the earth. We spoke about that Pasuk too, last year that is. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then Pasuk Tes says Hashem is going to make the sun set in midday. V'fachti chageichem la'evel, v'chol shirechem l'kina, v'alesi al kol masnayim sak, v'al kol reish korcha v'samtir ke'evel yochid, chisi ke'emar, v'hine yom bonu Hashem shlachti v'abayis lo yirav l'lechem l'tzam l'mayim, right? So lo yirav l'lechem l'tzam l'mayim is, of course, we've been talking about this, and this whole parak is about the Yosef story. And I want to suggest that Pasuk Yud is also corresponds to our parsha, because it's saying like this, because of the whole corruption, that they'd sell the ani and then they abuse the poor person by stockpiling the grain and so on and so forth, right? So what's going to happen is, Chol shirechem are going to be kina, kol masnayim is going to be kol rosh is karcha, and it's going to be ke'evel yachid. So I want to suggest that's our pasuk. Because Yosef brought kol Mitzrayim to Parik and all the mikneh and all the kesef and so on and so forth, right? So the einish is kol masnayim sa kol rosh karcha and kol shirechem lekina. Okay, and the evel yachid, I would suggest also, is like we're talking about that Yosef only had two banim and va'atem to look to achad echad. The point is like this, that Yosef is a Yachid. Yosef is always the Yachid. We spoke about this once, I think, that this pasuk Evel Yachid really takes us back to Yaakov, who said, he said, look, you have a big family. He says, no, he's my only son. It's as if Yosef is a Yachid. And Yosef is always a Yachid, right? He goes to Mitzrayim and he's still back to a Yachid. He's even in the court of Paro, he's a Yachid. Right? He's always by himself. And he doesn't even have a big family in Mitzrayim. He's always blibes a Yachid. The Pshat is like this. Because that means that there's a problem. Why is he a Yachid? He's supposed to have Bnei Yisrael. You're not supposed to be a Chidim. You're supposed to be a Am. Right? So now, because he's Chutzim Kaimai, that means whatever he's doing there is not Etzoldik. It's not where he's supposed to be acting. What's he doing over there? He's doing the same thing as Shvatim did. He's doing things that are menaged to the Dvar Hashem because he's doing things that are abusing the Evyain. So therefore, Samtir Ke'eval Yachid, it's the same Achad Echad that Yishai is saying. He's like, what are you guys doing there as Yechidim? The fact that you're Yechidim is a simon that you don't belong there. You guys view Hashem is a simon that you don't belong there. So that's perhaps just that the reason why it says Eval Yachid is the same. The fact that there's not a Rebui and Bnei Yisrael indicates that there's a problem with the behavior of Yosef in Mitzrayim, or it indicates there's a problem with the behavior of Mitzrayim, which Yosef was supporting and a part of.
So when they're living in Goshen and they're not having a good time because they're in Goshen,
that's when they can be Misrabah, right?
The feeling we're not here. This is not our place. We're supposed to be different.
Right.
They're being different.
Right. They're being different.
Even
right.
for Yosef that works.
What?
Even for Yosef that works.
Yeah, except that, but Yosef, as I said, Yosef's family doesn't have that rebirth until he gets that Yisrael. Because Yosef identified with time in a different kind of way. That's what I would suggest. So therefore he
taught his family to stay too close.
Yeah.
But he had an opportunity. He could have gone the other way.
Oh, now in this story.
In this story, he could have said.
Yeah, he could have said, "I'm Yirei Hashem, and I don't care about you, and everything's fine."
And I'll teach you how to be Yirei Hashem.
Or not. No, so that's the thing. There's two things, right? Either we could have taught them, maybe you can't teach them, but then maybe you could have told them, watch their downfall, and in other words, why did he care to teach them? It's for himself, but that's because he's worried about himself.
Right. If he didn't worry about himself, he said, "Hashem's going to take care of
it."
But if you want to come with me.
Yeah.
You want to come with?
Could that have worked? That's our old question. Could Yosef really have said, I have nothing to do with you guys. I'm Yirei Hashem, and maybe. I'm what would have happened then?
He waits till he's powerful. He makes the.
I mean, go to Ramban. He knew that his dream. He knew that his destiny wasn't that, right? Ramban. So he knew his dream tells him something about his destiny. It could be that.
But it could.